Peace family, it's your boy Bakari Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerative initiative where we believe that we could gain a competitive advantage as Black people by always betting on Black. Before I get started with this video, I just want to tell you, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And one more time, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. We're back again today. Another video, we're focused on education today, and we're discussing, I'm a Black college student, now what? As many of you know, there have been numerous conversations on social media, amongst friends, and even in the mainstream media regarding should young people go to college, right? There's been a lot of conversations regarding student debt, and do people want to accrue a large amount of debt in order to gain an education, or the other avenues that people want to pursue in order to be financially and economically self-sufficient. With that being said, just a little bit about myself. I'm actually a PhD student myself at a large research-intensive public university. And so I just kind of want to share some of my anecdotes and tidbits in my experience as an academic student, personally and academically and professionally, to possibly help a lot of Black students who are navigating what we like to call the post-secondary maze. So that, with that being said, I'm going to share a number of non-cognitives, right? So when we talk about non-cognitives, we're talking about basically soft skills, particularly soft skills that would translate well in the academic setting, but really soft skills that would translate regardless of what industry you're working in. So number one, when we talk about non-cognitives, the first non-cognitive that I believe that any student needs to have, particularly Black students at a HWI, historically white institution, or at HBCU, historically Black college university, is having a positive self-concept. We know that Marcus Garvey taught us that if you lack confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. But if you have confidence, you have won the race before it has even begun. So in any situation, you want to make sure that you're not lacking in self-confidence. I know they said that the late great Kobe Bryant was someone who didn't lack self-confidence, and as a rookie, as a 17, 18-year-old rookie, he believed and even told Michael Jordan, I could beat you in one-on-one when Jordan was at the last end of his second three-peat with the Chicago Bulls. So having a positive self-concept is very important, particularly when you're going to possibly be in an environment, especially if you're at HWIs, where you may experience feelings of what we would call a loneliness. You may experience feelings of you feel abandoned. You may even experience feelings of what we like to call in the academy, a situation in which you may not feel that you actually are up to snuff, right? That you may not be there, be what you should be there to that institution. So having a positive self-concept is very important. Number two, second non-cognitive, is having a realistic self-appraisal, right? So what do you mean by this? Again, I always use this analogy of Magic Johnson and his basketball career. I still believe personally that Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard ever. But in 1984 NBA Finals, he had a number of tragic missteps in those clutch situations late in the fourth quarter that caused them to lose the championship to the Boston Celtics. And the whole summer, all he heard was tragic Johnson, tragic Magic. And he said he realized that he had certain strengths as a basketball player, a realistic self-appraisal. He had certain strengths in which he was what? He was 6'9" as a point guard, and that what? He had great court vision, right? But he said some of his liabilities were that what? He wasn't a great outside shooter, and that he didn't have great foot speed. So he understood that having a realistic self-appraisal, my weaknesses will never become my strengths. However, I can work so that my weaknesses are not a liability. So what do we mean by that? So if you're a college student and you know you struggle in math, don't wait till your last semester of undergrad to take your required math course. Take it early. Work on that in the interim so that it's not a liability at the end, right? If you're struggling in writing, if you're struggling in public speaking, take some classes, go to Toastmasters, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Take some etiquette classes, right? Take a public speaking class as an elective so that you could brush up on those skills so that when you go out into the workforce, when you're competing for jobs, you have a competitive advantage. Third, and most importantly, unfortunately, a lot of research shows that oftentimes public institutions, particularly institutions of higher education, tend to be a reflection of the dominant society. And so oftentimes those institutions, such as historically white institutions, can sometimes be reflective and actually practice the values of the dominant society. So number three, the third non-cognitive, is to understand and effectively deal with racism. Why do we say we have to understand racism? For many people, racism is simply not liking someone. Some people may feel that it's an emotional or visceral dislike for individuals of a certain race or ethnic group. That is not the case. Understanding racism means that we understand that racism is the combination of what? Power and prejudice, right? You have the power to negatively affect someone's life possibilities through law, actions, et cetera, et cetera. Secondly, effectively dealing with racism. I think that's something that is very important. When I think of football, the quarterback can't throw a touchdown unless he knows what defense the opposing team is running. We have to do the same thing in terms of effectively combating racism. And I believe one of the ways that you can effectively combat racism is by gaining power politically, economically, socially, and of course militarily. Number four, having a concept of community service. I think this is very important when you are a college student. For many, this is what's known as an internship, right? I think of the fifth principle of Kwanzaa, which teaches us that we should make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to our traditional greatness. With that being said, I think that part of that community service aspect is that it teaches you to view things beyond yourself, right? And in doing so, you can understand that not only am I gaining this education, or would I have a career, I would be a professional, but I would be able to use those skills to what benefit the community which I come from. Number five, very important, you have to be someone who prefers long-term goals as opposed to short-term goals. We know a lot of people who get fired up about going to college, right? And they're very excited in that first semester, right? But it's easy to go to college for one semester, but it's not easy to go to college for 8 semesters or 10 semesters to get your degree. So we want to make sure that we understand that the race is not given to the swift or the strong, but he or she who endures to the end. Number 6, I think this is very important, is that is gaining relationships with institutional agents who are invested in your success. So what is an institutional agent? An institutional agent is a faculty or staff member at a state institution who actually works at the institution. I think this is a very important case. Part of this is, of course, networking, but the second is typically when you get a degree, right, when you apply for jobs, they don't just want references where you give a phone number or email, they want letters of recommendation. So it's very important that while you're in your program, you are taking classes, that you're standing out, while you're showing up and you're shining, showing up and showing out, so that, of course, you could gain those relationships, so they could be professional mentors down the line in your career, but also so that you're able to get those letters of recommendation that you're going to so vitally need in order to move forward in your said profession. Number 7, I think this is very important, is gaining a leadership experience. I hope everyone wants to be a leader in some way, shape, or form, right? We don't want to continue to be the small man or woman or the lowest person on the totem pole. And to do that, we have to understand how to be a leader, how to lead, and what goes into that. And so I think that is an important aspect of course, being a college student, and many times people can gain these leadership experiences by joining student organizations, or of course the Divine Nine. And last but not least, I think the most important reason that you should go to college, beyond, of course, there's the social aspect, right, where you're able to be in an environment where there are diverse and divergent views, and you're able to soak all of that up as a sponge and kind of find out who you are and what you believe in by gaining a sense of self-authorship, right, in which you develop your own views, values, and opinions that are different from, of course, those that your parents taught you. But last but not least, the most important, I believe, non-cognitive, is gaining knowledge in an acquired field. And what does that mean? That means simply getting that piece of paper, becoming credentialed, so that you can have a career in whatever avenue or aspect that you want to. And the reason why I believe being credentialed is very important is because you have the ability, once you have credentials, to go anywhere, I dare say, in the world, and be able to find employment. Very important. So just want to run down real quickly these 8 non-cognitives that I believe are vital and essential to having successful collegiate experience as a Black student. One, having a positive self-concept. As I stated before, Marcus Garvey teaches us that if you lack confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. But if you have confidence, you have won the race before it has even begun. Secondly, having a realistic self-appraisal. Magic Johnson alludes to this in his book, 32 Ways to be a Champion in Business, about his experience in the 1984 NBA Finals. That made him kind of sit back and say, I have to look at what I do well and what I don't do so well, and what goes from weaknesses, so that they do not become liabilities later on in life or later on in my career. Number 3, understanding and effectively dealing with racism. Very important, because we're going to experience things in life. We have to make sure that we don't have emotional or visceral reactions that cause us to engage in a situation where the initial behavior isn't the problem, but our response. That's the Jedi mind trick that oftentimes is ran on us by the power structure. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. Number 4, community service. As I stated before, the fifth principle, Kwanzaa Nia, teaches us that what we should make our collective vocation, the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to our traditional greatness. So we have to understand that this isn't just an individualistic thing in which we're pursuing higher education or pursuing a degree, pursuing credentials, but it's also community oriented as well. Number 5, preferring and aspiring for long-term rather than short-term what goals, because in order to be a successful collegiate student, to have a successful collegiate experience, you have to run a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Number 6, gaining relationships with institutional agents who are invested in your success. As I stated before, it's very important that we understand that when you graduate, when you get that piece of paper, it doesn't matter if you graduated magna cum laude or thank you lordy, as some would say, you're going to need letters of recommendation. You're going to need people that are able to vouch for you, your character, and your ability to do the job at a high level. And to do that, you have to develop those relationships. Also, gaining relationships with institutional agents helps you get people in your corner that will ever be professional mentors to help you down the road of your career. Number 7, leadership experience, very important. We hope that everyone seeks to be a leader in some way, shape, or form, even if that's just in your household. And then number 8, knowledge and acquired field. That's the whole reason why you attend college in the first place, is to get that piece of paper, to get those credentials, so you could go out and be able to go anywhere in the world and have a successful career. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you once again. I'm about to sign off, but make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and until next time, peace.